I'm super excited to be talking to you all today and sharing a little presentation as a warm-up for what we're going to be talking about at the event. The title of today's talk is 3 cutting-edge strategies used by the most effective and successful entrepreneurs on the planet. It's how to be more productive, how to beat overwhelm, and how to rocket to success. So I'm not hearing back from anybody. I just want to wait and see if I can get a comment from somebody, from one of our listeners, somebody who's tuning in live, just to tell me that they can hear me fine and that some of those issues with sound we were having have gone away. Maybe Darius, can you confirm that this is working okay just before I dive right in and start sharing the content?
Yeah, I hear you clearly, so that's all good.
Great, thank you. Cool. So I'm going to dive in and share some slides with you guys and get started talking about these cutting-edge strategies used by the most effective and successful entrepreneurs to be more productive, beat overwhelm, and be really, really successful. So let's open up the slides right here. All right. So first up, this is the title of the talk. Now, as we're going through this, I would love you guys, everybody who's tuning in live, thank you so much for taking the time out of your summer and coming and spending some time to do some professional development with me. I'm really excited. I consider it an honor. And the way that you can get the most out of this presentation, out of this live event, is by asking really great questions. So feel free to hit me up, use the question and answer function of the Google Hangout, and ask questions. I'm going to pause at a couple of strategic points throughout the slides, throughout this presentation, and flip back to camera view and handle some of your questions so that between the two of us, you and I, we can make this, this presentation, this Hangout, so much better for everybody else by helping you apply these specific strategies in ways that work for you. So before I get started, I want to talk a little bit about me, just because I know that not too many people know who I am, probably hearing about me, the Shrink for Entrepreneurs, for the first time. So I want to give you a little bit of an introduction and just spend 5 seconds bragging about what I do. So I'm known as the Shrink for Entrepreneurs. As Darius said, I'm a business psychology expert. I've been working for over a decade in this field. And I'm coming to Forum 1 in October in Lithuania to speak about some of the cutting-edge developments we're figuring out with my startup called Commit Action. So it's a business dedicated to helping entrepreneurs become more productive and ultimately to win the war on procrastination. That's our mission, is to defeat procrastination in business owners for all time. And we're going to be talking in October about some of the most cutting-edge stuff that we're uncovering in terms of the neuroscience, the research, the psychology that helps entrepreneurs become massively more productive. It's going to tie in perfectly with the theme of the Forum 1 theme of how to become indispensable. Because, of course, to achieve that goal and to really have what you want in life and business, you have to become a very highly productive person. So my background for studying this, and as the CEO of the company doing this work, is that I'm the Shrink for Entrepreneurs. I've been working one-on-one with some of the top entrepreneurs across a whole range of industries, from Silicon Valley through to medical, technology, random stuff like aviation, all over the place. I touch a lot of different industries. There's a lot of really successful entrepreneurs who use my therapy couch as their safe place to go. Between the lot of them, we've raised tens of millions of dollars of venture capital that I've helped my clients kind of figure out the mental side of as they've risen to that challenge, with exits totaling over $100 million. You might read about me in Forbes, Business Insider, Inc. magazine, those types of places where I'm often featured as a source and an expert on business psychology and the mindset of really successful people. So that I work one-on-one with these clients, and my business is the Shrink for Entrepreneurs, and my other business, Commit Action, is all about helping win the war on procrastination at scale, doing that with thousands and thousands of entrepreneurs. So that's just a little introduction to me and where my expertise is, what I tend to speak about, and why I'm here to talk to you guys about one really specific topic. And Darius and I were kind of chatting about this topic. And sort of joking, because he was telling me that in Lithuanian, the word overwhelm doesn't actually translate. It's a word in English that there is no close kind of correlation with. So I wanted to spend a little bit of time with you guys defining what overwhelm is, because I think that it is the ultimate obstacle. And it's something that I want to help all of the Forum 1 attendees and really everyone understand, because I think that when you go to these, there's a problem that we're facing in the world right now where, and I think everybody on this live session probably has experienced this in some way, shape, or form, where you go to maybe a great conference, or you attend a fantastic webinar, or you even read a really great book, and all of a sudden you're kind of drowning in great ideas that you know that you should be implementing. And that's what overwhelm is. It's the sense of being overridden by expectation, by knowing all of the things that you should do and not being able to find the time to actually do them. So my first kind of hypothesis, the assumption that everything I do is built on, is that you've got more than enough sources of great ideas. Certainly if you come to the event, Forum 1 in October, you're going to hear from people like Seth Godin. They're incredible ideas about how you can become indispensable and grow your business. It's going to be amazing. What I want to help you with today is how to combat the overwhelm that happens when you start reading the stuff, attending these events, and becoming really like blown away by all of the great ideas you have to go home and implement in your lives, in your jobs, in your businesses. So at the end of this webinar, I'm going to give you guys a bonus. I have a gift for everybody for showing up today, taking time out of their summer. It's really, really cool. It's a very valuable product, and I'm going to give it away for free for those of you who stick around to the end of the webinar. And I'm also going to wrap up with an anecdote about Seth Godin, who's somebody that I know. I was able to connect Seth and Darius together, and Seth has been an absolutely game-changing force in my career. And I'm going to tell you a story about how one tiny interaction with Seth changed my entire life and my entire business for good. That'll just blow you away when you hear the level of expertise that this guy has. He's one of my heroes, and I can't wait to share that with you as well. So in the meantime, we're going to talk about how to define overwhelm. So overwhelm is the biggest enemy of really productive people, or people who are aspiring to be really productive. When basic procrastination is defeated, you know, when you get good at like following through on your best intentions and you're able to take significant action, you know how to be a hardworking, busy person. The next obstacle is becoming overwhelmed by the sheer scope of great ideas and sometimes just overwhelmed by the opportunities that you have. Being overwhelmed is a first world problem. It requires intelligence and busyness. It's a problem that you only have if you're already well along the path to doing really huge things and being really indispensable and valuable to other people as an entrepreneur or even as an employee. And it can get worse the more productive that you become. So some of the clients that I work with, where we've been dialing in their productivity and helping them become superhuman in their focus and their ability to take action on high leverage business activities, can become really overwhelmed if they're not careful because of the size of the projects that they're working on. When you don't fix overwhelm, if you don't address it, if you don't listen to this webinar, if you don't take action on this stuff, almost nothing's going to get done. That's the big problem, is that overwhelm is crippling, and actually it's depressing. Overwhelm is an emotion that's very much connected with people's experience of what we could call clinical depression. It's described as severe despondency and dejection, typically felt over a period of time and accompanied by feelings of hopelessness and inadequacy. Now that sounds terrible, and when we look at the root cause of all of those feelings, overwhelm, being overwhelmed by the size of the challenges that you face is the problem. But luckily, there's something that we can do about it. So today we're going to show you how to defeat overwhelm, how to get rid of it from your life, and this is what you should do. Imagine life without it. You'd be able to dream big and implement even bigger. So when you have great, huge goals, and rather than feeling defeated by them before you've already started, you'll know that you'll be able to accomplish some of those things. And this is basically the skill set that differentiates what we call tycoons from the entrepreneurs who are just wannabes, who are always talking about ideas but never actually accomplishing them. So overwhelm is the ultimate obstacle, and today I'm going to show you guys how to defeat it. Now, before I move on, I'm going to flip back to the camera mode. Bear with me for just 1 second. Does anyone have any questions about entrepreneurship? I mean, sorry, about overwhelm. Let me see if I can put the camera on here. There we go. Does anyone have any questions about overwhelm? Hey Darius, if you're there, I actually can't see any of the questions. They've either all.
There are actually no questions right now, so.
Oh, you marked the other ones, the other comments as answered.
Yes.
That's cool.
All right.
All right, guys. Well, make sure that you do take advantage of the fact that you've shown up for this live event and ask as many questions as you can. It makes the event better for all of us, and it makes it worthwhile showing up to this thing live and rather than just checking out the recording. So please don't hesitate to ask questions. I'd love to handle them. For now, I'm just going to move on into the content and start talking a little bit about what we can do about defeating overwhelm. So we have 3 tactics for you, 3 principles, and then 3 specific tactics that are modeled from super effective entrepreneurs. This is real. This is based on real tried and true techniques and philosophies that are being used right now by some of my top clients, and I'm going to present those right now. Let me just cue up the screen share. Here we go. So, we've already done the slide. I'll just power through this. All right, so the first principle that I want to talk about that really helps us overcome overwhelm is prioritization. And we're going to have a couple of other fantastic things starting with the word P. So prioritization is our ability to zero in on specifically what it is that we want to do. So here's what overwhelm really means. It's a signal from our unconscious mind. It's not actually stress or some kind of disease. It's a signal from your unconscious mind telling you that the way that you're thinking about your goals right now lacks prioritization. The sensation, the emotional, somatic sensation in our body of overwhelm, that feeling of tension and stress in our neck and shoulders that we experience, that feeling of clenching in our gut, is actually our unconscious mind sending us a signal that it wants to change something. And the change that it's looking for is for us to find prioritization in our lives. Overwhelm is caused when we have a lot of different goals that are pulling us in different directions. And it's not that we have to do so much, it's that we don't know what to do first. We don't know what's most important to us. This is one of the biggest kind of game-changing reframes that you can get about overwhelm. When you go to a big conference, perhaps when you come to Forum 1 in October, if you walk away feeling overwhelmed, it's because you haven't yet adequately prioritized your action steps. And so with the help of this training that we're doing today, that'll never happen to you again. Overwhelm only has that one meaning as a signal. You must prioritize. So any internal dialogue that you have, that little voice inside of your head, behind your eyes, telling you things, if that says that you can't prioritize, then the source of that internal conflict stems from limiting beliefs or a lack of knowledge of how to do it. And that's what we're here to address today. But ultimately, it's all just resistance. Prioritization is the one path forward that will defeat overwhelm. And the overwhelm goes away as soon as the prioritization happens. So this is one of the crazy things I tell my clients who are struggling with overwhelm, is that when you're trying to be really ambitious, when you're trying to be one of the most successful, indispensable entrepreneurs in the world, you don't actually have to take a huge amount of action in order to defeat overwhelm. All you have to do is organize your priorities, and it's a purely mental exercise. What I mean by you don't have to take action is that it doesn't require you to go out and do all of those things to get rid of the feeling of stress, the feeling of overwhelm. A lot of people think, oh, I'm not going to feel good until I do all of this stuff. No, because that could take 3 months, 6 months, 2 years in the case of some of my clients. The overwhelm will go away as soon as you've organized the priority in your head or written down on a whiteboard or in some kind of format, some structure that works for you. The action is actually optional. You don't need to do things to defeat overwhelm. You just need to organize them, prioritize them. But it will always come back if you never take any action. It's always going to come back if you don't take any action at all. So when you prioritize, it creates this kind of window of de-stressing you. And within that window of time, if you can take a bunch of action, it doesn't have to be right away, but if you can get around to checking things off that list, eliminating some of those priorities, then you will defeat the overwhelm. It's not going to come back, and you're going to accomplish really huge things. So, presence is our second principle, being in the moment, but with a P. So once you've got prioritization, this is the second principle, also starting with P, that you've got to move on to. The psychological structure of overwhelm. Let's talk about that. Overwhelm happens when our internal representation of the present stretches. Now, this is a very kind of unusual psychological concept. What I mean by internal representation is the way that we internally are kind of hallucinating and imagining the present moment. So the way that we think about now, or whatever chunk or unit of time our brain is most comfortable associating with the present. When we ask ourselves, what do I have to do right now, ? Overwhelm is going to happen when our representation of the present stretches, and the answer to that question is a list of things that, in fact, it would take us 3 days to do or 3 weeks to do. And of course, we're not being in the present and really accurately answering that question of what do I have to do right now, because we can't do 3 weeks worth of work right now, no matter how important it is to us. So it's that stretching of our mental perception of the present that really causes overwhelm at an unconscious psychological level. You can't possibly do everything right now, but you feel as if you need to. And it's that feeling and that paradox that is the problem. Your internal representation of the present needs to compress back to the now. So if it's stretched out, you've got to reel it back in. You've got to find a way to get back to the present and focus on what is genuinely right in front of you. So there's a lot of different practices and activities that will accomplish this, and you need to find one of them. Now, I'd love for people to shout out in the comments and the Q&A here if they have any practices that help them become present. There's a big hint on this slide as to what one of those is, something that I highly recommend people practice, and of course it's meditation. There's a whole lot of other practices and activities that train our mind to be present in the moment, and that's a huge component of defeating overwhelm. It's hugely important for managing stress. So I'm going to flip on, see if there's any questions, and we're going to talk about, hopefully you guys can submit some ideas you have for activities or practices that help people become present. So there I am. Cool. So does anybody have any suggestions for stuff that they do, to find presence, to bring themselves back into the moment and defeat stress and overwhelm that way? We have a very silent audience today, judging from what I'm looking at over here. Maybe I'm talking too quick or overwhelming everybody and melting their brains with all of this information. So guys, feel free to drop a note using the Google Hangout questions tool, and let me know if you have any questions about what it is that we're talking about, or any ideas, anything conversationally that you want to add to what we're presenting here today. And Darius, feel free to pipe up at any point and let me know if there's a question. I'll just stick to this.
Yeah, Peter, I will let you know once the questions will be. But just to let you know, it's normal in Eastern Europe. People need to warm up a little bit. Just give your content. And yes. We have the first question already, so you can read it right now. Yeah.
Oh, cool. So Greta has submitted a question here. She says, I have prioritized my daily routine and business is in the first place, but I don't have time for myself. How to reach balance between my business goals and relaxation? It's a great question, and I think that one of the activities or kind of practices that's going to help you accomplish that presence of in the moment is also going to really help you with relaxation. It's going to help you kind of chill out a little bit. And the thing that I recommend for most of my clients is to begin the day with that. And this is for one very specific reason that a lot of people overlook. When you wake up in the morning and decide to begin working on your tasks and starting to work reactively and getting really busy, you're going to arrive at the day absolutely exhausted. That's always going to happen if you're an entrepreneur with huge goals. But when you arrive at the end of the day exhausted, probably all you'll be able to do is go to sleep or have some time to eat or whatever. If you wake up in the morning and make yourself take half an hour or an hour to do one of these practices, to meditate, to exercise, to do something that forces you to be present, you're still going to find that you'll have the same amount of energy for the day. You'll be able to work that extra half an hour in the evening somehow, like magic, and I swear this is what happens. You'll be able to add that time because you've put it at the front of your day rather than at the end of your day. Now, this is something that consistently happens. When you try and do it the other way around, it doesn't work so well. You tend to run out of energy and end up thinking, I should spend some time meditating, I should go to a yoga class, but in actual fact, it's like 7, 8, 9 p.m. at night, and there's no way you're going to do it. So Greta, the key is make it happen first thing. Prioritize yourself just for a short amount of time, first thing, and I guarantee everything else will fit into place. There's a couple of people here who are dropping comments. A good question is, what are other tools except meditation? So yoga is a good one. It's open eye meditation. You know, my favorite tool is actually skiing. I don't get to do it as often as I would like, only in the wintertime, but it's something that really forces me to be present, in the same way that I've had a client once tell me riding motorcycles does it for him. Because the thing about both of those activities is that though you're traveling at really high speeds and it seems like it's kind of frenetic, and you know, kind of intense, it forces you to be really focused because you're focusing on what's just right in front of you. And if you stop focusing on that, something bad is going to happen. So skiing is great because you're always looking just a couple of feet in front of you at all times. You have to tune out the rest of the world and just focus on what that is. And I think that those types of sports and activities, somebody has also mentioned in the questions here, I'm not going to attempt to say some of your names, unfortunately, just because I want to preserve any shred of dignity that I have left pronouncing them. So somebody said, for me, doing sports helps being present in work and other activities afterwards. So yeah. So what is the best time to wake up for productivity? Darius asked. That's a good question. I think it differs from person to person. I like to be up in the early mornings, but I know some people, particularly creative types, who like to work late at night. That's when they get their best work done. So it's something that you've got to test for yourself. Great questions, everybody. Keep them coming. I'm going to go back to the slides, and Darius, if you can just shout out when the next one comes up, I'll flip over. Let's screen share.
Yeah, no problem.
Cool. All right. So the last of the 3 P principles is the most important P of them all, in my opinion. This is the idea that your inner child is the one that's getting overwhelmed. So the inner child is this concept that's very popular in pop psychology, and it actually has its origin in a field of psychology called transactional analysis. But it's become, you know, popular in the social lexicon. Everybody knows this idea that we have a little child inside of us that has certain wants and needs, and that is often the part of us that really gets overwhelmed in the first place. So one of the things I've noticed is that entrepreneurs tend to apply more and more structure to their lives, the more ambitious they become, and also the more they learn that achieving big business goals is actually kind of difficult. And so a lot of people react to that by getting very, very dialed in. They read stuff from productivity experts. They start managing their schedule in like 15-minute increments, tracking everything that they do, being highly disciplined with to-do list software and project management stuff. And rarely is that the solution to overwhelm. In fact, I think a lot of the time that type of focus can actually backfire and cause a total meltdown. So one of the things I want to suggest if you're struggling with overwhelm is try destructuring instead. Try going in the opposite direction. Prioritization and action are very adult mind activities. They're driven by our ego self, our rational, conscious mind, who wants these big goals to happen, who wants to be a successful entrepreneur and buy a gold-plated jet ski and a private jet or something crazy like that. But the child doesn't understand any of these goals. Our inner child just wants pleasure now. It wants gratification. It wants to play. It wants to feel good and have fun. And when you set out on this entrepreneurial journey, you made a bargain with yourself that you would have heaps of fun doing it. Think back to when you started your career and you were really ambitious and you were telling that part of you, this is going to be so fun. I'm going to work harder than everybody else and I'm going to have to put aside fun now, but soon, very soon, I'm going to have a great time. I think a lot of people forget that. They get so caught up with structure, making themselves work so hard that they can burn out because there's no play in their lives. And it's play, it's destructuring that quiets the inner child and enables us to clean up overwhelm and make sense of our goals. So you need to learn how to have fun again. Most fun happens in the present. So this one really helps with the second point here, which was to build presence. You have to give yourself a little bit of what you want. This is the psychological argument for hedonism. And so one of my biggest inspirations for this idea of play, and there's a huge amount of neuroscience that supports this idea, of quieting that angry inner child that isn't getting what it wants. One of the biggest examples, I think, is Richard Branson. Now, fans of Forum 1 have seen him speak. He's an amazing guy, has achieved phenomenal stuff, and yet his lifestyle is probably one of the most hedonistic and playful of almost anybody who's in the public eye. Now, I think that we can actually point to some of his success and say this is probably happening. He's probably so successful because at some level his unconscious mind has associated increasing business success with making his life more fun, more playful, more pleasurable, rather than less. And yet so many entrepreneurs focus on working so hard and becoming structured and taking a lot of action and managing their time that it makes, as their businesses grow, they become less fun. They have less pleasure. They have less inner child reward. And this causes a huge problem. It causes a huge internal struggle because the unconscious mind's #1 priority is to ensure that our lives are getting more and more pleasurable at an emotional level, both metaphorically and literally, And so if you're trying to focus on productivity, but every day that goes by, your life is getting more productive but less fun, at some point your unconscious mind is going to ask, what's the point? Why are we doing this to be so miserable? What's the point of business success if we don't get fun, if we don't get to have a good time? And so play is the third most significant principle for defeating overwhelm and becoming really productive.
Sorry, Peter, there are a couple of questions, and you might want to check them out about the inner child. You mentioned, maybe you can explain in psychological terms what is, and there is one more question about overwhelm. Is it a synonym for the word anxiety?
Okay, cool. Let's take a look. So I find it, what have we got here? What do you mean by saying inner child? Yeah, so let me qualify that a little bit. So the inner child is a part of our unconscious mind, i.e. just the part of our mind that doesn't do the conscious thinking. The same part of our mind that makes us breathe when we're not really thinking about it, keeps all those functions in our body moving. The inner child is like the leftover part of our psychology from when we are actually a child, and then throughout the teenage years, we tend to develop kind of more adult desires and an appreciation for delayed gratification. So the inner child is the part of us that doesn't like delayed gratification. Usually when entrepreneurs are teenagers, or maybe in their early 20s, a part of them, their emerging adult mind figures out that if they work really hard and set aside kind of pleasure and having fun for a little while, they're going to be able to accomplish huge things and then have some really great rewards in the long term, i.e. delayed gratification. So like you know, work hard now, have a private jet later, have a jet ski, be able to drive it around with champagne and models and having a great time. That's what everybody wants, right? Theoretically. So I'm just kind of kidding, but that's one vision of success. Now, the inner child is the part of us that just wants to have fun right now in the present. And so a lot of entrepreneurs have this kind of dichotomy. They wrestle between the inner child and and their long-term, like, adult mind that's focused on delayed gratification. So one of the other questions is, I found it difficult in my work when I feel overwhelmed, what to start from. The most important task, top priority, but it may be a huge project, or applying to emails that require my full attention and requires quick response, but a low priority. Okay, so I'm going to answer that question with one of my slides in a second. Somebody else asked, is overwhelm a synonym of anxiety? No, it's not. It's not quite the same thing. Anxiety is fear that's oriented in the future. So we're literally fearing something that's coming up in the medium to long-term future, or, you know, shortly in the future, but not in the present. And overwhelm is a lack of prioritization. All right. So I'm going to move on now to, we're kind of, how are we doing for time? I'm going to move on, and we're going to go through a couple of techniques you guys can use to start implementing these principles right away. So let's do that. All right. So the first thing, if you want to begin prioritizing, is you've got to decant your to-do list. So forget nothing, but do something. That's kind of the general principle that I give all of my clients when I help them with productivity. I think everybody needs an enormous list with everything on it. I don't know about you, but every time I go to a really fantastic conference, I walk away from it with like a notepad with 101 things to do. And I think everybody's business needs a whiteboard or a notepad or a document or something somewhere that's just a list of 101, 1,001 tasks. I encourage you to have this written down outside of your head somewhere, because keeping it inside your head burns up an enormous amount of mental energy while you attempt not to forget things. So write it down. But everyone needs, and you should allow yourself to have a huge, big, messy list. Don't try and structure it, just get it done. Consider it a write and forget list. This is something that I found that very effective entrepreneurs have. You'd be surprised that some of the most successful clients I've worked with, they're not focused on fancy software to track their tasks or project management tools. It's a whiteboard or it's a piece of paper with just a list. So the key technique that I think a lot of people who have the list don't do is that you need a weekly ritual to decant that list. Decant it like you decant a fine wine. You want to pour off the good stuff, what you want to focus on, and leave all of the trash still sitting on that list. So you want a daily ritual to decant that list. It's even better to do it every single day if you can make yourself do that. So what I do to decant that list every day is ask, what do I need to do today that guarantees this day feels like a win, feels like a victory to me? Working from your giant list is a really epic failure. It's going to make you feel terrible, because when you have a list of 101 things on it, you're going to check off one of them or two of them or maybe 3 or maybe 5 in a day. And then you're going to just be completely overwhelmed by everything that's on the list. That's why, as a weekly ritual, you should go through and identify what I generally recommend 3 core items or kind of areas off that main list, and choose those as your priorities for the week. So that's using that first principle of prioritization to defeat overwhelm. And then you don't even look at that huge list until the next week. So it's about picking something off of it. That's the decanting process, just plucking what you want, writing it on a post-it note, and for 7 days, just focusing on those things. If you're checking a list with 1,000 things on it every day, you're going to get overwhelmed. It's not going to work. So slowly prioritize your big list, and it's going to keep all of those mental overwhelm demons away from you. Number 2, tactic. Oh, did I miss a slide just then? Hold on a sec. This should be number 2. Okay, so this should be number 2, is build practices, not to-dos. effective entrepreneurs don't just add a whole bunch of stuff to their lists. This is something that a wake-up call that I love to give the people that I work with. We were talking about Richard Branson before. He doesn't do 25,000 tasks more than you. Success is not about how many tasks you have or how much things you're how many items you're checking off your to-do list. If it was, then a billionaire would have to be checking off several thousand times more tasks than a mere millionaire or somebody who's earning $100,000 or $50,000 or whatever. And it doesn't work that way. In fact, what I've noticed is that the most successful people I work with have the least on their lists because they've got that prioritization concept down. So the goal is, yeah, to build practices rather than creating a whole list of to-dos. They ruthlessly eliminate potential ideas, these really successful people. They get rid of any ideas that are just potential, maybe someday, and instead they focus on building practices, which are also known as habits. These are the meta tasks that are designed to what I call rinse and repeat, which is things that you keep doing week after week after week because they're practices, they're habits that are good for you, that help grow your business, that help you move forward. So when I say meta tasks, these are not really specific action items. They're more just general practices and things that you're trying to do. So I'll give you some examples of what mine are, because these are the foundations of all major business success in the long term. For me, they're writing. I do a lot of that. I'm a big blogger. It's how I've built my business. So I've had to build a writing habit. So in addition to my list that I was telling you about of 101 things that are kind of project-based, I'm trying to always build the habit of writing something every day. Doesn't matter what it is. I don't have to be checking some key writing project off my off of my to-do list. I just want to be writing 500 words every day as a way of building that habit. Staff leadership is another habit. I'm always trying to get in the habit of having high-level conversations, coaching conversations with the people on my team. Exercise is another habit that you've got to build if you want to look after your health and have the energy and vitality you need to be successful in business. Personal development. I'm always building the habit of reading something every single day that's helping to improve my mind or teaching me something, because education is an ongoing process. I'm always looking for smart experts that I can talk to. And then for me, unusually, answering email is actually a habit. And I don't have time to talk about this now, but I've built my business in such a way that the only emails that actually end up in front of me are ones that are really important and that if I answer them are going to have a huge positive impact on my business. And another thing that I forgot to add here is networking. Every day I'm thinking about how can I add something, how can I do something to reach out to someone and build my network. So you see what I mean? These are meta tasks. They're not exactly like a specific project, but they're just general things that you want to repeat day after day after day and build momentum in your career. And what I've noticed is that this is what the most successful entrepreneurs do. They have areas of habits that they're building rather than a whole list of to-dos only that they focus on checking off. How are we doing for questions, Darius? We got anything?
Not yet, but it's
okay,
all good. People seem to be loving your stuff, so good.
So the last tactic, and this should be number 3, the real number 3, is how to build powerful practices. So how to take that principle from number 2 and just set it on fire, rocket it into the stratosphere, and be ultra successful at building these practices. So the way to do it is to follow what I'm sure you've all heard of if you've read Tim Ferriss, the 80-20 approach. So practice, it's a practice, not a habit. Like, I love to use the word practice because falling off the bandwagon is a natural part of it. I love the word practice because it implies that you're practicing. I think a lot of entrepreneurs put huge expectations on themselves. They put a lot of pressure on themselves, more than almost anybody else. And when you're trying to build a habit, you can, like with exercise, for example, it's something that everyone can relate to. If you stop doing it, it becomes really easy to beat yourself up and then just give up entirely. Be like, well, I messed up, so I'm just going to stop. But a practice is so great because it's something that you can focus on, if you fall off, if you stop doing it, just get back on again. The getting back on again is actually the building of the practice. The habit is just the side effect that comes from doing that. So this is a really important little mental reframe for thinking about how to do this. But again, this is something that I've noticed and studied in the most successful people. So it's super important. You've also got to understand, if you're building a practice, the paradox of being very rigidly disciplined with yourself and simultaneously being very gentle and very soft. So when you're on the bandwagon, when you're following your practice, for me, when I'm writing 500 words a day, I'm eating great, I'm exercising every day, I'm reaching out to someone in my network every single day and adding value to them. I'm like very disciplined about that. I'm dialing it in. I'm checking it off. I'm really like focusing on getting those things done. But when I fall off the bandwagon, when I fall off and stop doing it, I'm not harsh on myself. I can get that paradox of being like, it's okay, Peter. The goal is to just begin. Just start again. Just step back on that bandwagon. Keep playing that game rather than being really rough with myself and beating myself up. That's a huge problem, and I have to correct it, particularly in young entrepreneurs who are really ruthless with themselves. The other great tip is only ever build one practice at a time. So I have a writing practice, a networking practice, an exercise practice, a couple of other ones, and all of these have been built up incrementally over many years. If you're just starting from scratch in business, just focus on building one of these practices at a time. If you want to start networking deliberately, just set the goal of having one interaction where you add value with someone every single day. And just focus on that for a couple of weeks before you introduce another principle, another practice that you're going to do. These principles, if you do that, you're going to get, like, it's just this tiny little change that nets 80% of the results when it comes to building a practice. So really, I can't stress this one enough, just build one of these at a time. Habits in your personal life are more likely to impact your bottom line than any of the others. You've probably heard it before, and you may even be skeptical, but really focusing on the personal life stuff like relationship building and exercise and that type of stuff is going to have a huge impact on the long-term bottom line of your career, what you create as an entrepreneur, as an employee, no matter what you're doing. So that's the number one place to start building habits now before it's too late. Having a really good relationship-related habit is probably a good idea. I'm sure I don't need to tell you guys, but as the Shrink for Entrepreneurs, I spend a huge amount of time talking to entrepreneurs whose relationships with their significant others are getting really messed up because they didn't do this when they started out. They've gotten really, really busy. They may even be successful, but the relationship is hurting. So building a habit of paying attention to your significant other, I know this sounds like a touchy-feely thing and a weird thing for a business psychology expert to be telling you, but trust me, it pays dividends. It will make your life a hell of a lot happier. And yeah, when you've got that part of your life all sorted and you're feeling great about it, it's much easier to focus on business. Believe me, the clients of mine who have the biggest productivity problems with the most overwhelm are the people who are wrestling with relationship problems and drama and trying to focus on their business at the same time. So this is your preemptive insurance to that happening. Build a relationship habit so that you're being a good partner now, so that as the business grows, as what you're doing grows, everything goes smoothly for you. So
we have a lot of questions, so you might turn your slides now down and see there are really good questions.
All right, cool. Let's take a look. People are saying nice things to me. Your thoughts are really great. Thank you. Thanks, Justina. I appreciate that. So how to get rid of bad practices is a question here. How do we get rid of bad practices as time wastes, eating too much because of inner stress? This is a great question. So we're going to talk a little bit about that at Forum 1. It's something that I could talk a long time about. I could go on and on about this, but I think that you want to implement the principles that we've talked about today first, because you've got to deal with the stress in order for those practices to become easy to get rid of. So if you want to get rid of like eating too much or procrastinating, wasting time. First, combat overwhelm. But ultimately, those things that we're drawn to do are our unconscious mind seeking state change, wanting us to have that instant gratification. So the number one answer to that question is focus on play. Focus on bringing some inner child fun back to your life. You're going to find that that combats the stress and makes it way easier for you to eat good, exercise, and not procrastinate nearly as much. So try that out. Try that. Let's see some other questions here. Is it sometimes hard to continue traditional activities after some pause, i.e. changed environment or holidays? So sometimes even the implementation of these tools, what would help to make it a habit? What would you suggest to come back to the same way? So I think what you're asking me is, how do you get back? This is a great question to be asking in August. How do you get back from like a vacation or a big distraction, a trip that you've been on, and really dial in and focus? Honestly, there's probably some crazy technique that you can follow, but I actually think that the best thing that you can do is use that time to completely unplug and really allow yourself to play, fulfill the inner child's needs, and then start dreaming and fantasizing about what you want to do. My goal as the Shrink for Entrepreneurs, one of my biggest goals for my clients, is to help people work from a place of desire, rather than telling themselves they should do work or they have to do work, but work from the point of view of, I want to do work. And that's what holidays are best for, and taking a break is best for, is it gives you that space you need to be able to remember why you want to do it, why you desire to do it. So that's what I would focus on, is make lists of, if you have time while you're on a holiday, make a list of what you desperately want to do when you get back, what you want to have the most fun with, and just start doing that. Somebody asked me, how much are you spending your routine time on practices? That's a good question. When you're first starting to build a new one, it can take a little longer. But right now, in order for me to answer my email, do 500 words of writing, do my exercise, my networking, and I'm trying to think of what my other practices are at the moment. Those 5 things probably only take me about 2 hours out of the day, and that's mainly because of email, which is like a really big, it's a big part of my business. I'm actually talking with customers and stuff. So if I was to eliminate that, the next biggest time suck is exercise, but that's only 30-45 minutes. And the networking task, just a couple of minutes. Writing task, 30 minutes. It's nothing too crazy at all. So, and the thing is that because these practices are all designed to help increase my business's bottom line, when I write great content, it helps me turn strangers into customers. So it's a really, really important thing for me to focus on. So I think it's a good question, but you've got to, if you're spending a lot of time on practices, they've got to be ones that help your business goals move forward. And I've certainly organized mine so that they are that way. Practice is conscious happen, and then habit is unconscious, right? Said Darius. That is correct. Practice is the action of deliberately and consciously building the habit. The habit, I think, is what we get afterwards. It's a good way of thinking about it. Are you recommending to write down our long-time to-do list or a short-term to-do list? I think we could get upset if we do a month list and every day seeing that job is not complete can lead us to giving up. That's a great question. So what I'm trying to say is you need to have a list, just a messy list with no time frame on it, with everything that you've ever wanted to do in business. I've got mine. My one's actually looking a little short right now, but it's right here. There's like a bunch of stuff on it that I checked off just the other day because I've been working a lot lately. I've got to add a few more things to it. Oh, now I'm breaking things. I shouldn't have tried to move that whiteboard. So the goal is to have that list of like 101 things, but then every week decant it into just 3 items that you can focus on just for the week ahead. And those should always be described in a way where they're achievable within 7 days. So you don't want to be setting yourself goals of productivity goals that you can't actually win. So we're always asking over at Commit Action, what can you accomplish within the next 7 days so that you know that those 7 days were a total success? And that's the way that I encourage you to think about your to-do list as well. You've got to have 2. One place just to record all of your ideas, and another place to actually work from on a weekly basis. Somebody asked, I've heard about software-based approaches for to-do lists. Would you recommend using them instead of paper ones? My recommendation is here. I think software is a little bit, it causes a lot of friction. You spend more time kind of figuring out the tool than you just do just being productive. I love paper. I love whiteboards. I love that they're always there in front of you, whereas an app on your phone is only there when you actually click and open it up. It's not in your face all the time reminding you of what you're supposed to be focusing on. I like to simplify, and I think that paper whiteboards are sometimes the best way to do it. Darius asks how to stay committed to weekly rituals all the time. It's a great question. I'm going to answer it in October. That's the whole focus of my talk. So I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about how we're doing for time. It's 12:30. I think that we should probably wrap up, right, Darius?
I think you can continue with the content. The people who want to watch it will watch it, and for those ones who will want to watch it later, I think we will post a recording. So.
Okay, well, I'm going to throw up this slide here just very quickly for those of you who made it to the end. I've got something I want to share with you guys just as a thank you for showing up. This is an ebook that I've written called Seek and Destroy: How to Identify Entrepreneurial Obstacles and Overcome Them. It's free for you guys. If you just go to petershallard.com/forum1, you can put your email address in there, and I'll send you a copy. It's a really cool book. It explains a lot about entrepreneurial psychology, the obstacles we face in our thinking, and gives you some tips on how to overcome them. So I encourage you all to go check that out. Now, I'm coming out. I'm super excited to come out in October and speak at Forum 1. I'm so excited to be sharing the stage with Seth Godin, who's one of my heroes. He's been there at these key points in my life and my career and has been a huge influence on me in some of the businesses that I've built. And the story I wanted to share with you guys was actually one of the first interactions that we had. And I told him this. He didn't remember because it was so long ago, and it's probably such a tiny part of his day, but it changed my life forever. So I was really interested in Seth Godin. I was living in Australia at the time, and a friend of mine who's a member of the Australian Business Women's Network said to me, hey, our organization is doing a webinar Q&A session with Seth Godin, and if you want, I can give you the code for the webinar so that you can join it. And this was like, I had never even done a webinar before. This was so long ago that people were just starting to do webinars, and I was so excited. So I snuck on to this group of business women listening to Seth Godin do a Q&A. They were all asking him questions, and he was giving answers. And he was talking the whole time about the significance of finding what your superpower is. And it relates so much to the idea of being indispensable, because he was kind of saying, you've got to know what that thing is that you're better at than everyone else, what your superpower is. If you have that information, you're going to be able to build a truly indispensable career. You're going to be a huge asset to yourself, to others, to your business, to other people's businesses. And I was a consultant at the time. I had a therapy practice. I was doing some corporate consulting. I was aspiring to build an online business, but I hadn't really got started, and I had no idea how to describe what it was that I was doing. I was working with business owners, working with big corporates, and I just didn't know how to describe what I was doing. On my business card, it said like business psychology guy, expert or something. It was terrible. And he was talking about how to find your superpower and the importance of describing your superpower in your marketing and all that kind of stuff. And I was so frustrated because I just wanted to ask a question. And then eventually I just did it. I went into the webinar and I typed, just like some people have been doing today, hey Seth, what advice would you have for somebody who has always found it almost impossible to find to describe their superpower? And what was funny is that when I registered, I put in my name for the webinar, which is Peter, which is not a woman's name. And so Seth was looking at the stream of questions from all these women in Australia, all of these female names, and then Peter popped up. And of course, the hundreds of questions were being submitted, but he noticed mine because it was a guy's name, and he said, hold on, there's a guy who's snuck into this women-only business event. And he laughed, and the organizer was laughing, and he said, well, he has a good question, so I'm going to answer it anyway. This was the first time Seth and I ever really connected. And he gave me advice that changed my life. He said, you are not supposed to know what your superpower is. but your best customers already know it. So find somebody who's a raving fan, who loves your work and you love working with them, phone them up and ask them what your superpower is. And I got off the webinar. I phoned my favorite customer, who is an entrepreneur who I had been working with one-on-one, and I just loved doing the therapy, psychology stuff with him. I said, crazy question, but if you had to say what my superpower is, what would you say? What's my superpower? And he just thought for a second and said, it's kind of like you're some sort of shrink for entrepreneurs. And that's how I got the Shrink for Entrepreneurs tagline. Direct from Seth Godin through to my client. It changed my life. I put that on my website, and my personal brand absolutely blew up. My international practice absolutely blew up because Seth Godin, the king of marketing, showed me how to find my superpower. So I know that when you guys come to the event in October, you're going to have an interaction with Seth that will be just as valuable, because his work, just talking to me for 15 seconds, changed my entire life. And I'm just so grateful to him, and I'm so excited to be there with him in October and with all of you. So Darius, that's my Seth Godin story. I think I'm done, buddy.
That's great. I have also a couple of ideas to share with the webinar participants about you. As you said in the webinar, that you have to spend quality time to write very good stuff, very good articles, so that strangers are becoming your customers. And one of the reasons I found you was through one of the article, which I think the theme was the same as this today's webinar. And I read your read your article and said, yeah, this is true. This is true. Yes, yes. And so after that, I spent a lot of time reading your articles, which I recommend to all participants to do at petershallard.com. There are really valuable stuff. And actually, I want to give my praise to your Commit Action coaching platform. So in Eastern Europe, in Lithuania, we had the seminars, and of course, in all over the world, there is a popular saying that find a buddy and say to each other what are your goals, and then call each other and push to do that. Yeah,
Right.
yeah, but that doesn't work, because the buddy is not paid to do that work, and he might will be not motivated, or he is out of vacations, or whatever. So practically for people, I want to tell what is the core idea of your business. So Peter has a lot of coaches which what they do is they call you each week for 15 minutes. They ask you how it went for you last week. Have you made your 3 major goals during that week? And then they help to find what are your 3 other important goals to achieve during next week. So I've been applying to Peter Shallard for more than a half year, and I've done in that half a year more than I done before in maybe 2 years. So this stuff actually works, because coaches of Commit Action really help to figure out what to do, and they call you because of course they are paid to do that work.
Yeah, that's true. It's professional level accountability. Yeah. Thanks, Darius. I appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's true, and I used it. To all other participants, I want to show a couple of slides, because I know that not all of them decided to come to Forum 1, and at the end I will give you a special link through which, if you register, you will get a special deal from our team to go to Forum 1. So I will go to my couple of slides, not much. So 5 reasons why to attend Forum 1. It's first of all, we organized a lot of seminars, and we watched what's happening in the London, in New York City, in Singapore, in other different countries. And our idea was to bring this to our region of Eastern Europe and to Lithuania, to bring quality event which nobody else can organize. So, and that's how Forum One idea find its light. Worldwide business leaders, experts, and change provocateurs come to you. You don't need to travel. You don't need to book hotels, etc. And they are coming to you. So this is number one reason. And the second is, of course, we handpick the speakers for the seminar for the Forum One, and we have how to say strict filtering rules for the speaker. We never want like 100 or 200 people speaking at our event. We want 20, maybe 18 or 20, 22 speakers, but all handpicked and all covering the important part of business, career, personal growth. So uh, we give you the speakers which are not only not only has a good theory background, but they have a practical background of implementing that stuff or using that stuff. So you get these strategies and tactics for your business and career, only what works. Third of all, global business and marketing case studies and analysis, no secrets. There, Ken Schmidt from Harley Davidson, Gabor Bird from Blue Ocean Strategy Expert, uh, other speakers like Seth Godin will give you a lot of great stuff. And most importantly, during this Forum One, we will create a platform that during all those actually 3 days for Gold and Diamond the ticket owners to make a action plan what to do next to grow your business and career. And the fifth, I think, is the most important goal. It's to expand your network. And if you expand your network professionally, your business and career is going dramatically up. So what we will have a business networking expert during the Forum One, which will share with you some knowledge how to network during the events, how to get to talk to the people you want, even though the ones it's hard to get through. So and networking this year will be far more intense, and you will have a lot of good contacts to later on grow your business. So what is the deal is that uh, we have a special link. This is a bit.ly shortened link, like bit.ly/forum1 2014. And what you need to do is just go there and register to the event. There is no payment required at this step. You just register, and our staff will contact you and give you special pricing. So we cannot reveal what the special pricing is, because we will post this webinar as a recording. So when you contact us, we will give you that fresh information. And there was a question if we post recording. Yes, as I said, there will be a recording, maybe tomorrow and in a couple of days. So if you don't have any questions, I want to thank everyone for participation and questions, which we had a lot. And what I saw also that we had like 160 people at the beginning. Peter, when you finished speaking, there was still 140 or something like that. I haven't seen this kind of engagement very long time ago. So that's great stuff for you. Yeah. So. All great. Would like to say goodbye to all our participants. We will send you more information through emails, and let's stay in touch. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody. I'm stoked to see you all in October.
All right. Bye-bye.